If someone tells you that every DSLR is completely dead and outdated in 2026, they are staring at the marketing brochures, not the actual cameras. The truth is that while the weak cameras faded away into history, the truly great DSLRs became absolute legends. We are talking about professional-grade builds, legendary battery life, trusted autofocus systems, and a massive ecosystem of used lenses that you can pick up for pennies on the dollar. Today, we are counting down the top 10 DSLRs that still demand absolute respect in 2026. This is not about nostalgia. This is about making the smartest investment for your photography. The countdown begins, positions 10 to 7. We start our list at number 10 with the Nikon D7500. This is the camera that quietly makes a long list of modern, cheap mirrorless cameras look completely overpriced. Nikon released this body back in 2017, and they built it around the exact same 20.9 megapixel APS-C sensor and X5 processor found in the much pricier D500. Because of that, it still punches way above its price class today. You get bursts shooting up to 8 frames per second, an extended ISO that stretches to an insane 1,640,000, and a battery that simply refuses to die. It is the perfect tool for the photographer who just outgrew their very first beginner camera, but is not ready to drop thousands on a full-frame system. It can survive a chaotic wedding, a brutal hiking trip, or a grueling travel day without flinching. The only real downside is that if you switch to live view to shoot video, the autofocus suddenly feels like it traveled here from an older decade. Moving to number 9, we have Canon's fierce answer to this exact price tier, the Canon EOS 90D. This camera proves that Canon did not walk away from the crop sensor market quietly. It packs a massive 32.5 megapixels into an APS-C sensor, giving you the highest resolution crop chip Canon ever put inside a DSLR. When you look through the optical viewfinder, you get 45 autofocus points, and every single one of them is cross-type. This camera was built for the patient photographer standing at the edge of a yard waiting for a hawk to land, or the parent trying to freeze a fast kid at a weekend soccer game. With 10 frames per second and a deep buffer, you can crop in incredibly hard and still print massive, sharp photos. Used copies sit at a price point that makes entry-level mirrorless bodies look like a terrible deal. Just like the Nikon, its live view tracking feels years behind modern mirrorless tech, but for sports and wildlife on a budget, it is a beast. At number 8, we stop chasing raw speed and start chasing ultimate patience with the Pentax K1 Mark II. This is a full-frame monster built specifically for landscape and astrophotographers who do not care about fast-moving subjects. It features a gorgeous 36.4 megapixel sensor, a tank-like weather-sealed body, and a unique superpower called AstroTracer. By using a built-in GPS, the camera can actually nudge its own sensor to compensate for the Earth's rotation during long exposures, letting you capture perfectly sharp stars without an expensive tracking mount. It also offers pixel shift resolution to composite for exposures into a single, ultra-detailed image. If you are standing in the freezing rain on a mountainside waiting for the perfect light, this camera will not flinch. Plus, it accepts decades of older K-mount glass, allowing you to build an entire lens collection on a tiny budget. It falls short the moment you try to track anything moving, but for pure image quality in harsh environments, it is legendary. Right above it at number 7 is its smaller, more modern sibling, the Pentax K3 Mark III. This might be the most underrated crop sensor DSLR still being made today. It packs 25.7 megapixels on an APS-C sensor inside a rugged magnesium alloy body with built-in image stabilization. Pentax gave this camera one of the largest and brightest optical viewfinders ever fitted to a crop sensor body, boasting a 1.05x magnification. Combined with a 101-point autofocus system and 12 frames per second burst shooting, this camera is a tactile dream. It is built for the street or travel photographer who wants physical dials, real buttons, and zero patience for digging through annoying touchscreen menus. It survives dust, rain, and freezing temperatures that would send mirrorless cameras straight to a repair shop. The catch is that it remains somewhat expensive. Third-party lens support is thin, and it cannot track fast subjects like a modern mirrorless system, but the pure shooting experience is unmatched. Heavy hitters and professional workhorses. Position 6 to 3. At number 6, we leave the hobbyist world behind entirely and enter the realm of pure professional pressure with the Nikon D6. This was Nikon's final flagship professional DSLR, designed for sports photojournalists and agency shooters where missing a single frame means losing your job. Its 20.8 megapixel resolution might sound low, but resolution was never the point here. This camera is all about speed, insane durability, and a trusted autofocus system. It features 105 autofocus points, and every single one is a cross-type point with double the coverage density of older models. Its native ISO climbs to 102,400, and it expands to a staggering 3.2 million for shooting in near total darkness. It delivers 14 frames per second inside a body that can survive being dropped, rained on, and dragged through a war zone. Even on the used market in 2026, it holds its value because these professional workhorses rarely flood the secondhand market. It is heavy and overkill for most, but it is utterly indestructible. Coming in at number 5 is a camera that wildlife photographers still refuse to give up, the legendary Nikon D500. If you ask seasoned bird and action shooters what the best crop sensor DSLR ever made was, most will say the D500 without a single second of hesitation. It pairs a 20.9 megapixel sensor with a blazing 10 frames per second burst rate and a massive 153-point autofocus system borrowed directly from the full-frame D5 flagship. The buffer can hold up to 200 RAW files in a single burst, meaning you can just hold the shutter down and track a bird in flight as if the camera can see into the future. Because it is a crop sensor, it gives your telephoto lenses extra reach without forcing you to spend a fortune on massive full-frame glass. It refuses to feel old, because the job it was built for has not changed at all. Video features are definitely dated, and you must buy used copies carefully, but it remains an action masterpiece. At number 4, we have the Nikon D780, a camera that feels like it is completely cheating the DSLR format. This full-frame, 24.5 megapixel camera bridges the gap between old-school reliability and modern mirrorless technology. When you look through the optical viewfinder, you get a reliable 51-point autofocus system inherited from the flagship sports lines. But the moment you switch to live view on the rear screen, the D780 transforms into a mirrorless camera, utilizing 273 hybrid autofocus points with advanced eye detection tracking directly from the Nikon Z mirrorless series. It can shoot up to 12 frames per second in live view and offers beautiful 4K video. It is the absolute perfect tool for wedding and event photographers who love the deep grip, incredible battery life, and muscle memory of a real DSLR but still need the modern autofocus tracking speed that current clients demand. It sits in the shadow of bigger names, but it is easily one of the most practical hybrid tools ever made. Number 3 brings us to the camera that defined an entire generation of working professionals, the Canon EOS 5D Mark IV. For years, this was the default choice for wedding, portrait, and commercial photographers worldwide. It balances a beautiful 30.4 megapixel full-frame sensor with Canon's legendary color science and a highly reliable 61-point autofocus system. It also introduced dual-pixel RAW, which allows you to make tiny focus adjustments in post-production. The 5D Mark IV became famous because it just worked, shot after shot, year after year, in a dim church morning or a bright outdoor reception. Because Canon manufactured so many of these bodies, the used market in 2026 is massive, making it one of the safest and most affordable entries into high-end full-frame photography. Its 4K video is heavily cropped, and its tracking feels a bit dated now, but for pure still photography, its reliability is legendary. The top 2 legends. At number 2, we find the absolute pinnacle of speed and physical engineering, the Canon EOS 1DX Mark III. This is Canon taking the DSLR format as far as humanly possible before turning the lights out on the era. It features a 20.1 megapixel sensor designed for rapid data readout, delivering 16 frames per second through the mechanical shutter and a blinding 20 frames per second in electronic live view. The 191-point autofocus system utilizes deep learning technology to recognize and track human heads and faces instantly. Its buffer can hold more than 1,000 raw images in a single continuous burst. This is the camera built for absolute chaos, like a sports final going into overtime, a breaking news event, or a fleeting wildlife encounter. When paired with Canon's massive lineup of EF super telephoto lenses, there is no professional action job on earth this camera cannot handle. It is large, heavy, and expensive, but it represents the absolute peak of action DSLR engineering. Finally, standing exactly where it has stood for years at number 1, is the undisputed king, the Nikon D850. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel, share the video with your fellow photographers, and hit the bell icon so you never miss another deep dive into camera gear.